Okay, I have 7 o'clock. So we can, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. March 3rd, County Council. Would you all stand and give the Pledge of Allegiance? Vicki, would you lead from the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Steve, would you lead from the pledge?
Sure. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this nation. Thank you for our state and this community that we could be here in this meeting tonight. Just ask that you would give us wisdom and guidance in all we do and just help us to make it home safely. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody here. We have a little bit of an agenda here, so we may run a little longer than average, but we're going to try to speed our way through it as best we can. So, Jim was molded up, so otherwise we have a forum. So, first order of business is we have minutes. We had our minutes from the February 5th meeting, and then we did have an executive session. Did everyone get a chance to look at those minutes? Did anyone have any additions or corrections to those minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion. Second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, we have transfers, Cume Bridge Fund. I assume everybody got a look at the transfers as far as all the items that are listed there. We had a transfer from Accumulated Bridge Fund. This is Nate's project. Did anyone have any questions on those transfers?
I'll make a motion to approve the transfers.
I'll second.
Second. Those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries for the transfers. Now, there were some additionals. One of the items there was the bailiff. I don't believe the judge is not here today, but I think that was covered in a meeting prior where we discussed the bailiff and making that adjustment for funding the bailiff to get some training and approve that. There was also another item here for the CADA drug-free community. There was a county road home grant, 450 East grant, and then the court also had an interpreter grant. So there were 4 items for additionals. Did anyone have any questions or comments on what that was? If not, I'll take a motion to approve those as well.
I'll make a motion to accept the additionals presented.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Taking a second. Those in favor, signify by raise your right hand. 6-0. Motion carried. Okay. Sheriff. Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, before I bore you with some numbers here, I'll start off with some praise. Jimmy Robbins returns to work tomorrow on light duty, so he's a deputy that's been fighting cancer. He's got a clean bill of health at this point for
Wow, that's
cancer.
very good.
So,
Yeah. Excellent.
he just had his chemo tube removed on Monday, and all is well. And he notified us that we're going to bring him back on light duty status. Projection is the end of April, so to get him back to work. So we're excited about that. Excited for his family and everything they've gone through. This whole journey for him started back in September, so we'll be excited to get him back into the mix of things at the sheriff's office. So we just an update. We are still in the process of hiring to replace Diane Betts' position, who retired. So we actually we've done our testing process and we're doing interviews tomorrow. So that's moving forward too. So currently we are down 2 deputies with those things being said. So we're moving right along on that.
Are you still having trouble getting applicants even with the change in the program for the
I think
pay?
overall, not just us, but nationwide, the number of applicants we used to get years ago is down. We did get 15 total applicants, which back 10, 15 years ago, we used to get 30 to 40. So I think a lot of people don't want to necessarily do this job and all the things that come along with it, but there are still a lot of willing and good people out there and applicants, and so we're still drawing them. We'll know a little bit more about the group that we're looking at tomorrow night once we get through the interviews. So Yeah, I mean, the number overall, is the trend has been lower. But,
Oh, I was hoping the pay matrix would have helped solve some of that problem along the way.
well, I think it does draw quality people. I mean, we do have 3 applicants that are current police officers out of those 15. So it is drawing people from other agencies, whether they're qualified or problem child for other departments. I don't know. We'll determine that. But I think the matrix definitely has not only drawn quality people. I think that, and I don't want to judge that by the volume of applicants we get, but I think that also it's the retention for the people that have worked there and put in the years of service is meant a lot to them, and I've heard that tremendously over the last 2 years since they've been operating off of that. Same with the jail. So again, we thank you for that. As far as numbers, we have 85 total inmates today. That's down from 90 that I reported to the commissioners yesterday. So 36 of those are pretrial superior, 17 pretrial circuit, 15 F6s, and 9 DOC. So we were up above 90 here last week. If you look at the monthly numbers that I gave you, a lot of that was derived from we served 83 warrants in the month of February versus 47 last year. So,
Wow.
yeah, the warrants were for the prime taking this last month, so we served quite a few warrants, which that's upped our felony and misdemeanor arrests, as you see there as well. So, but again, our average population versus last year. I remember coming in as sheriff last year, and we were in the 120s. So I'd still like that number to be down, but I'm happy compared to last year what we were dealing with then. So, and there's been a lot of changes in the last year with how we process stuff. The criminal rule 26 pretrial stuff is already starting to take effect with the courts and so forth. So those nothing yet to report on statistics. We haven't been doing it that long, but all those things combined are making an effect in what we're doing there. So as far as numbers, everything, I mean, it's hard to tell this early in the year, all the numbers compared to last year as far as all the reported income don't seem to be anything out of the ordinary unless anybody's got any questions on any of those. So one last thing I just wanted to just let you know, we had our yearly fire detector or fire inspection, basically, so to speak. They come in and test our alarm system and all our things that go along with that. And, all that went well, but one thing they did tell us is they no longer make the fire detectors that we have installed in our jail.
Of course.
So, according to maintenance, my maintenance guy had told me usually we go down about anywhere from 2 to 4 a year when they come in and test. We've always kept some on hand. They did give us a quote. There's 4 bays within our jail. There's over 200 detectors in that facility. One bay is about $10,000 to replace all of them. So I'm still working on some other stuff. There's got to be some new old stock out there somewhere. So I got my maintenance guy trying to track down what he can for now. I mean, I don't think that it's not anything right away, but I just wanted to kind of let you guys know with that report just coming to me this week.
Do those get checked periodically, or are they
Once a year.
They're given a test,
Yep.
and so they're
And our system will tell us if one goes bad. We get an alarm system through our fire system that'll let us know that they go down, and normally we just change those out. So but he is getting, I think he is sitting on a couple left, so I should start looking for see what you can find. Might be something over the years that we might start replacing a bay at a time. That's the nice thing, having 4 bays. You don't have to do them all at once. So, but something to look for. More things I'm discovering
it is old
with an older jail. But as long as we keep on top of these things and keep tackling these things one thing at a time, it won't be such a big bite. So.
Well, I appreciate you staying on top of those things as they come about. It's better to know a little ahead than get a surprise.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, and a lot of that is attributed to our maintenance guy. He's been there I think he's been there as long as he's in jail. So he knows a lot of stuff, and I think if it wasn't for him, I'm not that fire guy. I wouldn't have known that. So between what we have to do to keep the upkeep of the building, keep everything in code, I attribute that to him to keep me informed of those things. So with that, any questions? If not, I'll.
We appreciate you coming in.
Okay,
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Appreciate it.
Have a good evening. I tell you what, Nate, I know your project is a big project. I'm looking to have Molly come up first if that's possible, just in case. I know that the project will be really cool, but if we can have all of you come up and give us a CADA report, that'd be great. She doesn't have to miss out. She just makes it.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm passing out is the annual spreadsheet of the grants that CADA has reviewed this year. We had just over $22,000 in court fees collected that related to drug and alcohol. And as always, the state likes for us to spend a quarter of our funds within each of the 3 categories that our money is supposed to go towards. So we have education and prevention is one, treatment intervention is the other, and then judicial or law enforcement. And so that quarter turns out to be a little over $5,000. And if you look at the spreadsheet on the left-hand side column, kind of breaks it down into those different categories. We also have some funds that we can spend towards administration, but that quarter requirement is not for that particular fund. We can't spend over a quarter in administration, but we can obviously spend less. And this year we actually took a little out of administration because we were really close. We only were 2,000 about different in how much was requested versus how much we had to give out. So we didn't have to cut very much. And all of the grants actually qualified based on what our comprehensive plan and our goals are. So everybody got something, and some people got, or some agencies were able to get the full amount that they asked for. Some we did have to cut, but we will have to go back to the state once we get everything aligned. We will have to submit a report that requests the money to go into, for example, in treatment intervention, we didn't actually have the minimum amount in that category. So it was only $4,500 that was requested. So we will make the request to move some of those extra dollars into the judicial line item because there were more requests in that than there were in treatment intervention. And usually the state has no issues with that. It's more of a formality that you do your best to try to meet that minimum requirement, but it's not. It's all going back towards drug use or substance abuse in terms of the whole grant process. So, any questions?
Did I hear you right? When we put our monies out here in the recommended versus the request, then the state matches some of that? Is that what I'm hearing?
No. The requested is what these agencies have submitted to CADA in their application, how much, and we put stipulations as to the maximum request.
Sure.
And this year the maximum request was $1,500. That CADA comes up with. It's based on how much money do we have to give out.
What you have.
It fluctuates from year to year. So the recommendation column is what the CADA board is recommending that we give to these particular
Sure. To match what you have.
entities. Yes.
I was curious on the opioid. Is there anything that's a separate project for just the opioid crisis? I mean, there's been talk of federal funding and things going to that.
There is a lot of things going on. As in terms of Wells County specifically, I know that one of the new grants that's in treatment intervention is for a Better Life Grant is Hope. which that is a recovery group that's been meeting for just a year now, and they are seeing like 20 to 30 people every week. And they have actually been able to help people get some treatment. And so the one line item is for actually sending people to get treatment at a treatment facility.
And
But
this
the
is
second one is the one that I would like to draw attention to. This is new, and they are going to do some success story videos. And they have a professional videographer that is cutting them a great deal, and we are going to be highlighting success around recovery in Wells County. And Brianna's hope is working with the individuals that have been successful in their recovery process and giving that positive light around recovery. Now, that's not specifically just to opioids, it's
Sure.
any addiction, but when you talk about addiction and you reduce the stigma around it, it doesn't matter if it's opioids or alcoholism, you're making an impact regardless of the drug of choice that you might be working towards reducing the use of.
where would that video play, or where would they
We're,
present that?
it's actually going to be like a social media campaign is what we're hoping for. So we're trying to reduce the videos to like 2 to 5 minutes, which is really hard for someone to share their story in. They might do some longer ones to, like if somebody wants to show them at maybe like I don't know, if you have a meeting or maybe some type of training or something that you want to use those videos. But right now the focus is social media because that's where you can reach all kinds of people from all different walks of life. So for now, that's the goal, to focus on social media.
Okay. Well, yeah, I sure appreciate you coming in. I appreciate what you do here.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
No, thank
Thanks,
you.
Molly. But you can stay for Nate if you'd want to, because it's the biggest news in Wells County today.
Yeah.
Okay, Nate, if you and Toby could come up. If everyone remembers, we had commissioned Nate to look forward to a project for our transportation plan going into the next however many years it'll take to get there. But
Yes.
I always like the idea of having a target to go for and maybe get there at some point in time. I don't know if you'll cover the time frame, but
Yeah, we'll hint at that a little bit. Obviously, that's going to be a big sticking point for us overall.
sure.
Again, thank you very much. Certainly, this is a culmination of months of work. Initially, I think I'd hoped to try to have something done by November of last year, and here we are in March of 2020. But hopefully, that's been worthwhile for everyone. We had a lot of success with the previous study, and so we're looking for similar projects to kind of be a part of this. The project itself, we studied most of the roads from Division Road or State Road 124 north to the North County line, looking at different traffic patterns, where are people driving and why, the different routes, getting counts, looking at what improvements would or wouldn't work, and specifically some of those roads were obviously State Road 1, County Road 600 East, County Road 450 East, County Road 100 East or Norwell Road, County Road 300 North, and actually Mill Street, which would be 950 North as a future road option. All of those are different pieces within our study as far as how do people drive, how are they getting to Bluffton, how are they getting to Ossian, how are they getting out of both of those communities, whether they're going to work. The study did not, and I want to make kind of a point, the study didn't look at different alternative transportation systems. We didn't look at autonomous vehicles. We didn't spend time looking at public transit. Those are well outside the scope. Future systems, we're anticipating transportation today looks very much like transportation 30 years ago. We're kind of anticipating that we're not going to see massive changes that would not be at least considered within it. But we weren't looking at like mass transit system, something pie in the sky. And this isn't the Jetsons. We're looking at something today as far as real that people can kind of relate to, a relatable plan. So, but we want to make sure there's no new barriers to what we're doing today for the future. The overriding dilemma within the study was how heavily Wells County is dependent upon commuter traffic. Nearly a third of our workforce works in Allen County, lives in Wells County, and we're very much a symbiotic relationship with Wells County and the greater Fort Wayne area. And it's not reflected in the infrastructure that we have today. You've got a lot of commuters that are using other county roads. It's a lot of stress on our system. We get calls at the highway department for changes in infrastructure on rural county roads because of one accident here or there, and it's often because commuters are taking shortcuts through the county road network and treating them as thoroughfares or highways because they want to bypass the existing state routes. And that creates a problem for us because how do we try to accommodate them without making those roads good enough that more people are drawn away from the state routes, away from Ossian or away from the north part of Bluffton into these branch roads, and it's more wear and tear on the county network for a higher cost, and the life safety becomes more of a concern because we can't make all of the roads meet that standard, so then you're forced into doing speed controls and other negatives to try to discourage people from living or traveling in those areas. So how do you balance that out? So the study looked at those different alternatives as far as what we wanted to try to develop within that system.
Nate, real quick, when you say a third of our workforce goes to Allen County, do you have a cluster of some sort to show where the third of those people live within the county?
I do not. Part of that was from the I want to call it the big data.
Okay.
So what NERC, the Northeast Indiana Regional Coordinating Council, had done was take some of the masked cell phone data. So when they started saying, we're going to track your cell phones, and it was okay, big brother, really what they were doing is masking your numbers, and they wanted to see the mobility of people without actually going out there and putting counters on every road. It's like, so if your cell phone's here in the morning and it's there during the afternoon and then it's back here in the evening, they wanted to see the migration of people to see what is the interaction within the Northeast Indiana. Where are people going? Where are they coming from without just polling? Because you can see something more organic with that data. And so they don't know who anybody is, but they just see the movement of all these points essentially within that data. And that was one of the things that we found, that Wells County, of communities, and Bluffton, Ossian, all those built into that, we're like the third or fourth largest commuter population as far as a relationship with Fort Wayne. So of that, we're the only one without a four-lane highway. And in fact, numerous communities far below us have four-lane highways and other transit routes that are better suited for that. So we really we don't have the infrastructure in place within the state facilities or even our facilities to try to support what you are. And you are really a veteran community is what we're finding. And so if that's who Wells County and Bluffton is, and if that's a part of your current state, is that part of your future? And if it is, then I want to make sure that the transportation system that I'm proposing improvements on facilitates that.
Right.
Because if you're not,
Before you go on, to correlate with the big data using the cell phone, there were traffic counters out there when like State Road 1 was closed. What did 450 get? So it just wasn't cell phone data. We backed that up with traffic counts, the rubber tubes across the road as well.
Did you guys have a chance, I know with everything was happening in the Ossian area over last summer, was some of that first data from before the road was closed down and whatnot? I'm assuming you did, right?
We actually had a separate set of counts done after when they had closed State Road 1 down during that to kind of see how much traffic migrated
everybody was
away.
out in different directions around Ossian and all that.
And what we kind of seen, just observed, and a little bit of this sounds anecdotal because a little bit of that is what we see is everybody has their pocket route or personal route to travel. It's like, well, I take this route to go to work, or I take this route to go to my grandmother's house, or I go this route. Everybody has their own route, and often we found is everybody found their secret route that did not involve going through Ossian. And that is a problem for Ossian. It's actually a problem for all of Wells County and Bluffton, because as Bluffton hopefully grows, that problem is going to get bigger and bigger. And there's a tipping point that essentially that develops within the modeling that essentially it's a break point for our infrastructure. And so at that point, people are all going to be pushing for the routes. Where we see kind of those design days is when the weather's bad. So winter is kind of the perfect time to kind of observe that, because we're unable to really plow routes overnight because we don't have the street lights, we don't have the right-of-way widths, or roads aren't wide enough to try to accommodate 24/7 plowing and maintenance. So if you've got to be at work at 7 in the morning, you don't get a snow delay So the only route that's clear is you got to go on State Road 1, and everyone is, and then you're crawling. And so everybody's essentially losing their collective minds together to on their commute up or back. And that's not really a good thing for anybody. Because if you want to be that inclusive community, you want to have a high quality of life when you're at your worst, that's certainly a problem for the community to try to retain the commuter population that you have to that next generation. And so we want to make sure that how are we going to do that? And this study kind of outlined probably the recommended solution for how are you going to do that, because you are a commuter community, and if you're going to change your identity, that's something that's well beyond the scope of this study. But we're looking at what your conditions are today. What's the best solution to try to provide infrastructure for the next 50 to 100 years? Because essentially that's what this sort of a study is laying out. If we get to the dollar amounts, we can, but really what you're doing is trying to lay out, this is the projection, and we want to try to include this in your county comprehensive plan that Michael Lotzenheiser is working on as well, because this document and that county comp plan essentially need to work together. This provides the analysis and the reporting as to why, and then that essentially codifies the roads as far as moving forward on that plan.
And one reason I was asked about the cluster of people is it would feel like that you want to start the phases, not the
Yeah, how would you do the phasing? Yep.
Right, because if you have a bunch that are up at North Quarter, maybe you start differently.
Maybe you
phase
start
3
here.
that you have instead of phase 1. That was
Yeah, right. No, that's a
that
fair
was where we
question.
get the
and
relief
how do you
more
accommodate
immediately.
that?
Right.
Yep. And there's some of the projects that you see on that bingo list over there actually are alternate projects, maybe depending on the phasing and the cost. Maybe you do a lower cost project that maybe not long-term is in your best interest, but it may provide some relief over a 10-year period if a project's going to take you 20. Or maybe you say, we don't want to waste any money on this, because when you're talking about money, and it's not waste, but you're talking about millions of dollars, why should I spend $2 or $3 million of county money and federal money, to get $10 or $15 million in federal money, when maybe we could try to subsidize a larger state project and move that forward 5 years. I mean, that's the sort of thing, that's the balancing act that maybe this study isn't able to weigh the options as far as how you want to prioritize that. That's definitely above my pay grade as far as how you're going to do that, because it's going to take a lot of voter interest, it's going to take a lot of public support to make something like this happen, because this is, as projects go, we've had a lot of success. I mean, we've gotten a lot of federal aid projects, local tracts. I mean, millions of dollars from the state has been brought into Wells County recently, and then even prior to me, there's been a lot of work done. This is on a different level. Thank you. I want to make sure I'm answering your questions as we go.
But as you leaf through the study, this is not a final document by any means. This is just a conceptual idea. You got the first 37 pages of this study. There's 300 pages. So
The Cliff version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I've neglected to print off for the council is actually the cost. So if you cheat and kind of go to the back, you got your map, and then you have Appendix A, which is basically this map right here. Didn't start printing out the numbers and things of that nature. I guess that's not what we're here tonight, just to really talk about hard, fast numbers. No, we're just here to let you know that the study has been completed. Nate has gone through it several times. The state of Indiana, we've had a conversation with them. Greater Fort Wayne Incorporated, you know that, Mike. And so this is just not Wells County's idea. We've gotten other people's synergies, and sometimes we've got a stiff arm saying, well, so we're moving forward to, bring something that's viable in the future. It's just, some of them might be pie in the sky, but you got to put it out there so the state knows what you want.
We're at a very good point for this. Now, I met with a number of people and individuals about the study and some of the things that we're attempting to do, and one of the comments I'd received was, gee, why didn't we do this years ago? I can't answer that question. It certainly would have been far less expensive for the county, to try to do this when other communities were getting projects like this. I think very much Wells County and the community has been very content. I think everybody has been very eager to live within their means, try to be a very conservative community. This breaks away from that a little bit, but essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to retain the quality of life, a lot of the vision that we say we want to see, we want to try to develop. This is one of those pieces that is going to kind of push you forward from an infrastructure standpoint. You've got a lot of communities that you identify as competitors or peer cities from the counties around, and from a transportation standpoint, from an economic development standpoint, you don't have numerous features that they have. And so you're at a significant disadvantage from bringing business in, from bringing commuters in because of your access issues from a transportation standpoint. And so this study is trying to say, okay, here's what in all likelihood is your best benefit, the best bang for your buck, rather than trying to improve all the roads we listed. Really, the best solution that the study found was, and I'll spell it out, is finding some way to develop a 4-lane highway from Dustman Road to I-469. In meeting with Allen County, they're like, hey, that sounds like a great idea. Maybe we'll 4-lane Bluffton Road from 469 to Airport Expressway. But that's, from them, the benefit for them is that road's actually their road. Here I am looking at a study and saying, gee, NDOT, you need to spend millions of dollars, and not just millions, tens of millions of dollars doing a major project so that we don't have to do numerous other projects that actually pull traffic away from their facility. Because if, for example, say we take Tealy Road, 450s. Why do we call it Tealy? Because everybody knows that's the road in Allen County connected. I mean, where everybody's betraying what they're actually doing is that's one of the bypass routes we see. If we make that road look like County Road 300 West with 80-foot right-of-ways, and we spend, say, I think there's actually a number in the estimate for that. I won't quote it because I'm going to get it wrong. We spend millions and millions of dollars on that. You're essentially encouraging maybe 1,000 more cars a day to stay off a state road on it and never go to Austin. That doesn't benefit Austin. It may scratch an itch from a transportation standpoint, but that doesn't have the long-term solution as far as the growth where you already have Bluffton. Now you're pulling traffic away from a route that already has numerous commercial investment, and you've got a lot of transportation needs there already. And so you're pulling them away. Now you're going to create other unintended consequences. The city may not have infrastructure there. Austin certainly sees less people. So how do you kind of mix that? One of the options within that is to say, let's get 4 lanes that'll look somewhat similar, maybe a 4-lane with a 5th center turn lane for part of it through the downtown part of Bluffton. And I'm saying that from like 300 north, south. It would look somewhat like it does. But then at some point, would it turn into a 4-lane divided highway, maybe with a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit? You'd stop at 224, and then your next stop wouldn't be until maybe a light at 800 North to get into the industrial park in Ossian. And rather than tear through Ossian, really the best option that could be developed was to take a route around the east side of Ossian. Because we looked at different options, and we found you'd pick winners and losers in Ossian, and much of Ossian would have lost because there was over 120 parcels, I believe was the total going through Ossian, that would either have to be partially just demolished and bought out or completely bought out. The least invasive option would have put the Presbyterian Church essentially in the median of a freeway. It's like this. None of these things keep the character of what Ossian would likely want, and the cost would be prohibitive for that. And you're not going to benefit the commuters because you're going to go from having 3 lights to 6 lights. There was just so many negatives. Now, could that be done? Sure. I mean, we've proven that that's an option, but based on the analysis that we have, that really wasn't a preferred option for the community based on this study. And it didn't save enough money to justify that. And it actually creates an east side, west side scenario for Ossian. The west side would be trapped by the railroad tracks and the highway. The east side would be allowed to grow. That's obviously 20 years in the future. We can't be sure what's going to happen, but certainly it's a recipe for problems within that community.
Again, NDOT has the ultimate say. So
Absolutely.
State Road 1. So we put a conceptual thought and money behind it, and
Yep.
part of appendix, it goes through if there was, who is touching it, the land, how much the value of that land is. It's all spelled out. But NDOT will probably do another study themselves.
Yep.
And they'll look at this and they'll say, well, is it viable or is it good? You know, so again, we can get excited about a lot of things.
Yes,
but,
absolutely.
you know what? We got to be very cautious when we say that.
Well, ultimately, our goal here is to try to address, isn't Bluffton really one of the only towns that doesn't have a four-lane road access to Fort Wayne at this time? And I was just looking through the traffic counts as it relates to, and I'm assuming these are up to date or as
Yes.
accurate as possible, running in the 10 to 15,000 cars range. So if you look at a two-lane highway, and even if you're dividing them off on the side roads, isn't that, I know when we met with NDOT, they said, oh, well, 18,000 is where you really should have a congested road, but I've been on one, and I can tell you firsthand, if you catch the wrong time, you're going to be running 40 mile an hour all the way. So, you know, again, these traffic counts are one part of NDOT, but there's also, from what I gathered in our meeting, some, well, I guess public feedback is helpful, or even legislators at the state
Yep.
or federal
Yes.
level would contribute to that. And then looking at your funding sources, you know, on the back page here, it references federal grant money or even
Community crossings.
community crossings funding. But ultimately, this is a big scenario, big plan, big project. But the whole point was, if we never ask and you never look, it'll never happen. So, you know, again, I don't want to say what a timeline could be, but if a person were to say, even if you did phases to reduce some of the traffic restrictions, 5, 10 years, 15 years, somewhere in there?
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, we were just recently awarded federal aid on 3 different bridge projects. 2 of them are for fiscal year 2024, and the third one is 2025. Very typically, a granted project is a 5-year cycle, at the very least. In our discussions with NDOT, I mean, your best case scenario for any one of these would be to try to break ground on even one phase in 2026. And that's a huge leap or a huge ask to get to that point. But I think we opened some eyes from a number of different partners. Greater Fort Wayne Inc. really had no idea where we stood as a partner. I mean, you're referred to Auburn and Columbia City, and then Bluffton. I mean, so when you're talking about communities that just say, well, obviously these communities have major pull with Fort Wayne, you're third to them. I mean, well above Decatur, Huntington, you know, these other communities don't have the same sort of relationship that already exists. And, I mean, there's been hundreds of millions of dollars of industrial development near the airport already. I mean, I could say with some confidence that there's other communities that would kill for your access to the jobs that are there that they don't have. It's just what you're missing. You're missing some pieces as far as how to get your people and try to build on that relationship. And one of the things that's been so refreshing within this study is that really it comes down to a housing race between both Ossian and Bluffton. And Wells County as a whole wins from that, because you're not all the eggs are in one community's basket. You're not asking about a 4-lane road to one city. You're talking about a 4-lane road to 2 cities. It's either one of them has the opportunity to really grow, and as one development's happening here, another development's happening there, and you've already got ready-made jobs. So I think that this, in light of your housing studies that you've seen, I've reviewed some of that, and this in light of kind of your overall plan, the road to $1 million that the regional partners have been looking for. Right now, what we're looking at with this is that if this is an acceptable direction for Wells County as a transportation plan, then certainly this can be used to go to your state legislators, to your federal legislators to find funding opportunities to fund a project of this size, because this project, compared to so many of the other ones that we're working with, some of the bottom ones are local, federal aid, community crossings. Those are opportunities that we can pick off, and I'll work on plans to try to develop those long-term for the county. But projects 1, A, B, and C, we don't have jurisdiction to do it. It's a wish list. We're essentially trying to convince the state that this is in the best interest for the community, and how do we work with them to try to bring that sort of infrastructure and development investment into Wells County. And it's not something, certainly it's not something that Toby and I can do on our own. And honestly, it's going to need to have a lot of push from all the partners within the county. If it's not believed in, then obviously then this was a good exercise for a couple of projects. But if that's the direction we want to go, and we want to see that investment in the hundreds of millions of dollars, then we're going to have to essentially push for that. And it may be, it's not going to be less than 6 years, and let's hope it can be done in 20. That would be, that'd be fantastic. It is a long game, but it's a very big ask.
So what does the process, Nate, look like for getting this to NDOT to even get approval? Because it seems like you need their approval first before you can really do a whole lot, right?
Well, they'll get a copy of this, but for them to approve it, no, they're not going to approve it.
Right.
They'll just
So
take the
that's-
information and say thank you. I can say, Seth, at this time that I think they're pleasantly surprised. They're like, oh, well, I think they kind of knew the traffic counts, they were there, but if you don't, I think Mike said it, if you don't ask, you're not going to get it.
Right.
And I think this study says this is the ask, whether it's future projects coming down the line for community crossings, you can point to this study saying it's justified to do all these other things, whether it's State Road 1 or 300 North. It sets the plate up. So.
Well, interestingly enough, Seth, Blake was in on that meeting, Nate. We actually sat there and laid out what the vision should be. And it was interesting to note that they were quick to take well, that's not going to happen scenario. But over 2 hours, they were actually engaged with a map. They looked up their traffic count scoring. We had some level of buy-in with the project as where we were saying, here, these are really key components. They just didn't know. And I think it did have merit to spend the time to go over with them.
Yeah,
Because by the end of the conversation, there's a traffic counter out there now, isn't there, Nate?
There was at Willowbrook.
So,
Yeah. Yep.
so
They were
so
looking at that
some of the things
intersection.
that we brought up, they already are looking into as
Yeah,
further.
it's got to go. Hey,
So,
we're going to take a second look at this.
Well, and it's going to take some goodwill and a lot of effort on our part. From where I am, and is essentially in some ways a cheerleader for Wells County from a transportation standpoint. I will gladly beat the drum with them to the point where they don't want to talk to me about Wells County and how much we need stuff. But that's part of my job for you, is to try to make sure that our needs are there, make sure that the projects are flushed out and reasonable and phased, and they're not absurd projects. But this is a big need and a very big ask, and so it's a lot of project for Wells County, and it will change your community. It'll change Bluffton. It'll change Ossian.
Absolutely.
And you're talking about. I'll express one of the models. If you do what we're saying with State Road 1, Ossian could be a city of 12,000 people before it fills in the railroad to the new State Road 1 route, and within that area. So you're talking about setting the tone for Ossian to significant growth. How it grows, when it grows, is completely up to Ossian. How Bluffton grows is really up to Bluffton. But right now we've got some restrictions that are built in, inherent within our transportation network, and we haven't broken them because there's enough relief points between the other routes. But I'm seeing from the complaints that I've seen from the accident data that we have, that there's going to be a certain point in either in my career or the next that it's just going to be like, this just doesn't work. Or maybe you'll never get to that point, but that means things are stagnant. And that's not where you're telling me you want to go. So if you want to go where we say, you want to see development, you want to see growth, then we're going to have to set the tone for that. And this, for me and where I sit, your transportation side, this is the piece to fit into everything else. You can overlay your broadband needs, your housing districts, your other development. All of those start to layer. This is just one of those core pieces, one of those foundational infrastructure pieces that you need. Just exactly with what the city's doing. Water tower here, a sewer expansion there. But unfortunately, this is a monstrous project. Absolutely is. I won't deny that. And it's not something that you're not going to be able to do fundraising. I can't ask you for match money for this.
Yeah.
Not for this one. I'll ask you for match money for the other projects.
For 30 years, we're going to have to.
I'd take a bake sale or two.
Yeah, it's going to be some fun plate passing for a long time. But I'm excited from this because this is a very reasonable, and there's a solution that's out there. Can we get to it? How we get to it? It's going to take a lot of effort from a lot of different people. But I'm excited
It's a
for
good
it.
plan, though. I mean, it's nice to have something in
Well,
the future that you're building into.
Exactly, and knowing that Bluffton is intent on growing at this point now, my sense of it is with their position to grow, those population and traffic counts should increase, and that should draw a bigger need that if you don't think today about it, 5-10 years from now, then it'll even be more of an issue.
Right.
It's just going to be difficult, and there's going to be some questions that go out with the county comprehensive plan that kind of draw some public interest in it, and there's going to be naysayers. I'm certain of it, but we have flushed through a number of different issues, and if you've got questions, you want to know why it was recommended to do certain things. At the end of the day, right now it's just lines on paper. It is exactly a dream, but it's a dream with a plan. So now we just got to put some action to it. So
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Nate or Toby on this?
Are you guys officially done with it then? Everything's...
I mean,
I know when we started this last year.
He said, hey, can you make one more adjustment in there?
if we're done, he'll send me his last invoice. If we're not, continue to ask.
I know when we started this about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So if the public wants to know more about this or any details, what's
I guess-
their
If you
track for that?
Well, I guess that would be a question to ask you back, is do you want this information on the county website? How would you want to make this public? Now, necessarily, leaving it in my office and meeting with any interested person sounds nice, but I might have other
Yeah,
things I have to do.
exactly.
But if you
We'll
put
it all
the
in there.
document on the county website with a certain revision and date, there's no problem there.
I think that's a good story.
So-
Certainly, I'd like feedback on it because this is something that's not really been done in this county that I know of.
Big change.
That I've ever seen.
I know in the Southland, there was some promotion with the chamber
Right.
and
They-
things of that
you had
nature.
some
I
initial
didn't know
meetings,
whether-
yeah.
We had some initial meetings early on, and we've had some real success with those. I'm hoping for the same. I mean, honestly, and we've teed this sort of project up for NDOT. When we first met with certain individuals from NDOT about our project, they had some packaged, well, what are you going to do about this? And when we actually came back with answers, it set it back and like, oh, you actually thought about this. and you're willing to do X, Y, or Z, and they're like, yes. If this needs to happen, then we're willing to work with you on maybe moving State Road 1. Maybe these things need to happen to find a solution. And is it going to be a difficult transition to make that? Sure, but if that's the direction we need to go, with the least human cost from people's homes or businesses being bought out, then that's the direction maybe the county needs to look at going. And they were one surprised that we're willing to put the plan together essentially for one of their own road. That they weren't, but
Yeah.
it needed to be done.
You didn't say no.
Oh, absolutely not. If you're willing to be quiet, then they can move on. And that's not an indictment of NDOT.
Well,
It's not. It is just simply the situation of you've been very content, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you wanted to have these sort of improvements, if you don't have the vision, then NDOT's not going to force it on you.
Interestingly, it's one of the things that they did comment, or they did say this when we sat down with me. They said, well, all our decisions are data-driven, which suggests traffic counts and need and capacity. But interestingly, in that conversation, though, the sense of it is, well, if there's people engaged with the topic, there is buy-in there too. It isn't exclusively only data-driven.
No, the people that we met with obviously were those who had to respond to the data and the data analysis. But there are also decisions that are made at a state or federal level that bring in more of the economic development and those needs that are beyond what they're allowed to do. So the group that you met with at NDOT, they had no technical issues with your project, but they're not going to recommend funding internally for a project unless it hits certain milestones. You know, I've made the case at Wells County, you don't have enough traffic to compete for funding with Indianapolis or Marion County. You just don't.
Right.
You know, there's roads with more people on it an hour than are in the entire county. So you're not on that same level, but that doesn't mean that your needs are inconsequential. There are very substantial needs for Wells County for you to provide a benefit as one of the partners in these regional partnerships. As part of that Road to a Million, you play a significant role, and actually a role that's got a lot of upside that, say, other communities can't. You don't have geographic restrictions that other communities have. You don't have, it's just simply a will to get there how you want to get. So I'm optimistic for it. I'm happy of what we've done with this. I'm sure that there'll be some negative, but honestly, if you can get the level of investment, you're talking about just a lot of growth. And I think there's been a lot of desire for growth. Well, here is one of the canvases that you can paint a lot of growth and development for the county on.
I think I'd be open to having this on the county website so that people can look at it and give us their comments and their thoughts, their pros and cons, and obviously you're going to have a few people that it directly affects that'll be somewhat negative, but I think in the overall you're going to have 90%, 95% of the people should be very positive about a project like
Was the
this.
south one, was that on the website? Just
I don't know that we ever were ever asked to do that, and we had not, but that wouldn't mean that we couldn't. This and the other one would both be parts of the other. Unfortunately, we tend not to get much feedback on these sort of studies. I think often people are just disengaged, which is unfortunate. Certainly, we want to try to involve people. I'm sure if they
it's
see
a
the
place
map,
that we
they're
can
going to.
it's a place we can direct questions as well,
Absolutely.
because you're not going to have to
Absolutely.
memorize the whole thing to
Yeah. And
we have a
again,
place for the information.
It's approximate. Really, what we're trying
Right.
to do is get
It's a
a good
start.
idea of how we're going to do this. I'm sure someone will try to figure out if their house has got to be bought out or how it's going to affect their
I
commute.
understand.
But it's a lot less than would have been just about any other route that we repeated.
Or what it would be in 20 more years, perhaps.
Exactly. So I think time is certainly a key element. When you're talking about a project like this, your inflation alone is well in excess of $1 million every year you wait to do this. So, I mean, it's not getting any cheaper.
Yeah.
It's true for every other project out there, so that doesn't always make NDOT flinch. It's like every other project gets more expensive too. Why do we need to do yours? Well, we're asking really, really hard. So that makes a difference, you know? So, but
Squeaky wheel.
exactly. So thank you for all squeaking in unison for these projects with me. Certainly we can try to see something done for you. So again, thank you very
This is
much
great.
for
Thank you.
supporting
Yeah.
this.
Thank you, Nate.
Hopefully with positive
Thank you.
feedback, we'll be able to make this work. So.
Thanks, guys, for the time and effort put into this
Thank you
so
so
far.
much.
More to come.
you.
That's good. Sure.
Okay. Next, we're going to have data pit stop with Darren Bates. This is in relation to perhaps the funding for a highway garage.
Okay.
What things we could do to adjust or work our budget. Some magic. You're going to give us all the good options we have, right? Oh, no, he's
A little tired?
We have extras.
Yeah.
Yeah, initially with where we are, the highway garage as it is right now, and Blake, maybe you would want to care to share on this. We're at the very early stages of numbers coming together.
Very beginning.
So it's not ready for prime time yet, but things are moving forward.
Right.
So one of the components is being able to pay for it.
Yeah.
So
I think about half of you, the other half I haven't
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah. Don't worry, you'll forget me all the time. It's okay.
I think it's,
Vicki, yeah.
was it Cambridge?
It was Cambridge, yeah.
Yeah.
The last time you had me in here, yeah.
Checking cash.
Last year I had 13 counties that I had their tax data every night. I'm up to 37 counties now.
Wow.
As we've been filling in gaps, Greg and I have been working on asset inventory management, fee collection, after-pay reporting and collections, drains, and of course taxes that we've been doing for you. And I'm sorry, I gotta move around.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, and if I hesitate, to cut to the chase, next Tuesday I'm going to see a neurosurgeon. For next
Oh, wow. Jeez.
hopefully. So, anyways, I'm trying to deal with it. I thought I had a solution until Lisa showed me some laws that won't allow us to do it.
Thanks, Lisa.
It's always a hitch. Always a hitch.
The maximum rate was .033. The second year and beyond. The first year is half that. I just looked at your taxes, and there was a line that I could stick in my interactive program I've made to put in $1.5 million that you were trying to get saved for 1 year, countywide. And I picked Lisa's parcel as an example because I had her email there. There's her name and address. So I put it in there and said $50 a year is what it would cost her. It's not unreasonable, countywide, and it would generate $1,510,000. You know, the reason I was hoping to make it, because she put second or third email, she said, "Well, this might be a 20-year project." Is the whole point, and it's like, oh crap, because Wabash thought you just saw your rates last year for this year. Wabash started 3 years ago, well, actually 4 for the last 3 years. And they were losing roughly $127,000. Oh, here we go. This is Wabash's data. They're losing $172,000 when they had a levy freeze. They thought it goes up to $459,000. I mean, boom, Now, in their case,
They're hitting circuit breakers, right?
circuit breaker.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's
Yes.
what I'm sure.
Jump in any time. That'll help me.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
You still have a stabilization fund. You didn't deplete yours. You still have a buffer there.
Yeah.
Wabash didn't. They had that last year. They came up short. If they're using $750,000, they were short $40,000. I mean, that's how they were right to the point of just wiping it out. So when they thought they needed to thaw, you still got that stabilization that pulls some $500,000 to $1 million each year. So you don't see a jump, but your jump from 40,000 to 85,000, it doubled from last year to this year. It's already doubled. So that's why they had an initial jump. But right there, nearly $500,000 became $1 million, became $2 million. Now they're kind of leveling out because they got the rates and well, that's a jump. 5 years from 100,000 to almost 2 million. That's why I was trying to find a way that you get this thing paid off in 5 to 8 years, because your 40,000 becomes 80,000, becomes 300,000, becomes $500,000. 10, 15 years from now, you'll be lucky to get 50 cents in the dollar. If you're trying for $1 million, you're going to get $500,000. Well, with the rate, I was trying for 1.5 million. At the second year, the best you can get is $500,000 a year. The first year, you can only get $250,000, being they only allow half of that. So what would be 15, do the math, that's basically 15, 17 years. Even if you could collect every dime of it, as you can see with caps, no, it just keeps getting worse. Your 15 becomes 17, becomes 22, becomes 28. By that time, you're going to have to fix the highway department. You just bill it, and you have to pay it off, and now you got to fix it. So that's not going to cut it. Everything before getting here today, I thought I had a solution, and we could get paid off in 5 to 7 years. Doing a tax rate is not going to work. doesn't mean it can't help. In life, there's no one solution. So the other way, and I know all the county councils never like my suggestions, is you cut credits. And that's the only thing you have left, is cut credits, because you don't start increasing income taxes when you're giving money away. You've never, you and Wabash and Pulaski, every county that did a frozen levy 10, 12, 15 years ago, 2008, 12 years ago, 13 years, you never needed credits. You froze your levy down here. Nobody's hitting caps. If you're not increasing your income, if you're not increasing your tax rates, you're not going to hit caps.
Did they do it because they were scared they were going to hit caps? Is that why that was always?
Because it's real simple, cutting to the chase.
Yeah.
I already said there, it's a state idea.
Yeah.
They didn't know.
I know they were fearful of it, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. That's why they did that.
The only reason why they even created credits was they knew you were going to hit caps.
Yeah.
And the way to do that was target, back then, a credit to where you think you're going to hit caps. Now, the problem is, most counties didn't do that. As you're heavy on homesteaders. Yet homesteaders don't hit caps to speak of. Rental properties hit caps all the time. Businesses inside city limits hit caps all the time. And now you're on that road, you're going to be increasing. You're going to see your cap 3s and 2s start hitting caps, doubling and tripling every year. Bluffton will not be growing in 3 years from now when it comes to money. At least not through taxes. Through income tax, income tax, wheel and surtax. Alphabet soup taxes, how about that? You pick it, you name it, one to be, about different taxes. Bottom line, the state still today says, if you haven't implemented it, don't complain to us. If you haven't maxed it out, don't complain to us. Bottom line, there is no county in the state that's maxed everything out. Pulaski's close to it, but they're a disaster. They still had a frozen levy up until this year. They thought it last year for this year. But by now, they're already $2.5 million in the hole because they kept dispersing the money they didn't have. And I asked them, why'd you do that? Well, because that was the math they gave us. I said, it's putting you in the red. So now you're pulling on that, what they have in the state, that buffer, that, whatever they call it, that they keep in reserve, and they give so much, and when they build up so much, they end up sending it back out to you.
Rainy day.
No, not rainy day. It's some sort of buffer that they make sure that you, because you got corrections every year, appeals and all that. They can't give you 100% of your money. They've got to put it in the reserve.
They hold that distribution back, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And about 4 or 5 years ago, they got to build up so much. They said, "Oops, here
They
we
give
got to
us
send
a
you some more money."
windfall, yeah.
Then all of a sudden, "Oops, we gave you too much. We got to start pulling back some more."
I remember that. It was nice. Yeah.
That's why these things. I got to look at 10 years. The longer I have you. Oh, here's the average over the 10 years. So if I get around there and bring up your site so I can show you your data instead of Wabash. I just wanted you to know what happened with Wabash, how it escalated and got worse and worse and worse. Now, the reason why they leveled off, by the way, you have roughly $2 million that you're giving to credits. They were giving $6.5 million to credits, and they cut out half of that. They just said, "Sorry, people, we got bills to pay. We're going crazy here. We got to cut half of it out." And they put it to PSAP. Are you familiar? Do any of you not know what PSAP is? Public Safety. It's 911. It's to fund 911.
Okay.
So the example would be: are you using any of your general fund? Do you have a line item on your budget to pay for 911? Pay for the salaries, for the equipment, for FICA, FEDA, all aspects of 911 dispatching. Are you paying any of that out of your general fund?
No.
You're one of the few.
Yeah, so right now.
So your
but
phone
it's
company-
depleting. It's depleting.
Yeah, we're going to have to
It's
address that
coming.
too.
It's coming.
That's coming.
That's the point then. If you're not paying for everything, right now you apparently have enough out of your phone fees that are paying for
Yeah,
it.
paying for it. But it's.
But even that's dwindling.
Yeah.
Because who has landlines?
Yeah, exactly.
And cell phones, they just don't target that much. So the bottom line is PSAP is like your seated money, your public safety money. It's a line that is off the top, right at the top first. So it doesn't go to Bluffton and Ossian and you know, all the other units of government. You say, I want $500,000, or I want 2% or 8%, I want a percentage off of public safety that goes and pays for 911. Then after that, the rest gets divvied up by percentages. So, here we go. Okay. So, you're 90 here. As you can see, this is all public information. Anyone can get to it. So in your case, we'll go here. And we'll go back a couple of years. And then here we go. Come on, there's the mouse. Even with your frozen levy, as you can see, maybe we can make it bigger. There we go. As you can see, you had 28,000, 42,000, 57,000. Even with your frozen levy, it kind of wavered, but you can see the final column there. This is pay 19. I haven't been told whether you have certified rates and approved. Has ever been anything approved?
Yes.
Then I could log in and make it live to see what effect this year is having. But last year, like I said, it already doubled, and more likely it doubled again. So, bottom line, you're on the track that you're not going to be able to make enough money that way. So, what I have is a spreadsheet here that's interactive. So we can say, okay, right now, I'm dealing with taxes, not your frozen levy. Right now, you have shares, and you can't see that, can you?
No.
I'll.
Bad eyesight.
Here we go. Let's try 120%.
Oh, there you go.
That better?
Yes, that helps.
Okay. Here's overall, right there. You got a 1% is your shares, as in you split up among all units of government except for schools. They are grandfathered in with 0.25% from long ago, but it doesn't matter. Any new income tax, schools don't share in. But every other unit shares in some way or another, depending on the alphabet you choose, like seated money, county government, and cities and towns only. Public safety, same deal. But shares, every unit except for schools, so townships and libraries get shares. All right. So you have 1% of shares. You got a 0.15 for your public safety. Now, public safety is radios and this, non-911 things. And again, that's shared. That's generating $977,000. Your seated money, economic development money. Too many people are grandfathered in on the concept that economic development money is to get the businesses, encourage them to come here. No, it's for anything you feel like it, because the list now is almost nil of what you can't use it for. So I have told many counties, Fountain County, hey, fix your elevator, that you're being sued right now because the only way to get people up to the second floor where the is the stairs and a wheelchair.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 years is broke, and they said, what are we going to do? And I said, economic development money. I said, what? We can't do that. And they got with their lawyer and said, oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been that way at least 3-4 years, right? A year or two before you broke it. Grant County, $1 million of their seated money is paying for their health insurance.
Wow.
Because they were in a class action suit among some of their employees suing them because they were delinquent on paying their bills, and so they hurried up and took seated money, and because they took away seeded homestead credits, and just dumped it into seeded instead of homestead credits. They put it into seeded, and that was like $2.2 million. In Grant County government was $1,400,000. They put $1 million right in there. Boom, lawsuit gone. So bottom line is, see, you can play around with this. There's no one solution to anything. If you start fiddling with the simple dollars, the hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, they'll all work its way through. Again, like you had the prior guy, you got to do something to start whittling away at things, to accomplish something. So here you got 0.3 or $1,955,000. I must say $2 million you're giving to credits. You're giving the homeowners, and you're giving them to rental properties. Whether it's commercial rentals or you and I, if we had a house that we're renting, the bottom line is rental properties, qualifying residence, they used to call it. The point is, you're not hitting caps, therefore you're just, I don't want to say free money, but it is. I mean, you're not, the idea was to combat cap losses. And, if we took away all the credits today, you're $80,000 last year. It's always easy to, what if you did it? That's the way my program works. If you didn't have a dime, the $2 million in credits, you would have lost, instead of $80,000, you would have lost just short of $100,000. So you had $2 million of influx of income tax or credits, and only needed $20,000 of it. So that's where the state's saying, hey, you're wasting the income tax. It was designed to pay bills. But if you hadn't done it 12 years ago, people wouldn't have been used to it, and they wouldn't be out anything at this point, but they are. The crux of it is, if you didn't have that, you would have never had to have thawed your rate, because you would have had lower rates and different things. So bottom line is, you have a 1.7 rate for property taxes. Your other 0.4 is your frozen levy that you can't get rid of because it's grandfathered in. You locked it in, and the math will never get you there, because if it was, you wouldn't be in a bind now for money, because you can get rid of that frozen levy if you kept building things up. Well, obviously you're not. So the bottom line is, your rate is 2.1. Your income tax rate is 2.1, and the average, very solid average, is 2.5 for the state. So you're down there below the average. I mean, out of 92 counties, last time we did a count, I think it was 38 to 40 of the counties were at 2.5, 2.55, right in that. And then there's plenty above that now. The bottom line is, you don't want to keep increasing income tax when you're giving credits. First thing is eliminate the credits. That way you keep your income tax same at that point. Grant County just wouldn't listen to me. I told them, look, if you cut your credits, which they had 1% credits, if you cut 0.3 of the 1%, look, you got 0.3, they had 1%. I said, you just cut it by 0.3, and it'll give you enough buffer to not worry about for the next 2 years. They raised their income tax by 0.3 because they didn't want to take away from mostly homeowners. It was election year. And they said, well, cutting the rates, you're going to hit the senior citizens. I said, no. Senior citizens are all protected. They got the over 65 deduction. They got the 2% circuit breaker cap. I knew all about that because my dad was on it for a good 6 of the last 10 years. I found all the rules and found he applied. But then he took another $200 a month, and it put him over the limit of at that time, I think it's $20,000 for single, $30,000 for married. But the great part is now they raised that to $40,000 for next year, and Dad would qualify again. So, bottom line is, if we did away with, being I didn't want to keep going out the decimal places, I just turned the 0.3 into 30 on this box. It's like saying 0.3. If we just eliminate that and move it to seeded money, means we're going to take away all the credits, the $2 million, we're going to give $2 million to economic development. Now, some of you was like, well, wait a minute, that's controlled by the commissioners.
We got the one right now that's going to
Yeah,
be.
Commissioner here.
Yeah,
He's going, yes.
Celebrating back there.
Yeah.
Wait,
He's excited.
So now-
the highway department's
No,
over here.
He's
so
grinning ear to
celebrating
ear.
Yeah.
So I told another county, I said, well, it's simple.
he gets his bridge money. That's where I had to.
So I said, okay, look, the commissioners love me when I start to say that at the beginning. Then I said, no. I said, lovely government of ours, checks and balances. We control the rates. We're going to tell you, we're going to make this rate, and you're going to use it for this. Because if you don't, we're not going to only take that away, we're going to take the other seat away. You won't have a dime.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's going to complain that he doesn't get anything for his bridge fund now either. So, again, checks and balances, there's always ways of making sure, and you get written agreements, your lawyers get involved in all that. Well, I mean, now you shot some more money. So, anyways, we go up here and we say, okay, your share, because you got to share it with all the other towns and cities.
Right.
So, $2 million, you get $1.1 million. So, I'm not saying you do away with all the credits. I'm just saying if you had done it already, you would have $1.1 million. And if you have a $6.5 million project, as Lisa said, you could then pay for it in 6 years. And in 6 years, now you don't have to worry because doesn't need any work because it's still somewhat new at that point. And you can look at, she said, talked about a jail. You can talk about your road structure. The point is, you start using the money more efficiently. Because if your people like what's going on, the way I heard, and you've been conservative or frugal, whatever words you want to say, you haven't been wasting your money. You find ways of utilizing it better. You create some of this in non-reverting funds. You make funds that you stick money in, and whether you're in this position this next year or not, the point is you all voted that when you create it, money goes in for this project, period. So another council comes in, hey, yeah, we got $500,000, we got $1 million, let's go and do this. No, it was designed for this purpose. Again, lawyers have to draw it up and draw lines in the concrete, not sand, to say you have reasons for doing this stuff. Mm-hmm. And and the public loves that. You pay for 911, public loves it. Doing things that benefits the community, to help things safer, convenience. You're not doing away with services. They're going to forget about the credits you took away from them that they didn't need in the first place, and they got used to it.
Yep.
The point is, you're finally to the point. I've been preaching this, by the way, for 5, 6, 7 years. I said at that time, slowly cut it away. Yeah. Now, do you have hatchet? You just start whacking at it. Again, Wabash had 1%, and they cut it in half. $3.25 million, and $250,000, right, to piece up to pay for the 911 because they were in that big of a hole. The other $3 million went to shares. Point is, you didn't even have a third of what they have, and that's how bad they cut it back because they just knew that they had to do something. Now, the towns are going to love you at that point. I assume the big number there, 623,000, has got to be Bluffton. They're like, whoa. Now, the thing is now they look good or bad, whether are they going to use it wisely or not.
And that's the whole key with it, is how wisely is it going to be used.
Well, and I think that's the key point for Bluffton at the moment. They're committing to infrastructure.
They are.
So
Right.
we all have cut it. To me, government in Wells County has cut a little aggressively and maybe too much because it's prevented us from growing
Oh, it's
for the sake of low taxes.
infrastructure, right,
And
exactly.
it's coming back to haunt us at this
Right.
point.
Again, I'm in 70 counties. Greg and I are helping 70 counties out of 92 counties with excise tax. We've seen how much the state's not giving you, even though it's growing. Now with assets and Afterpay and all this, and going from 13 counties to 37, I have tax data out the wazoo. I've done statewide analysis when Pence was in there before he became vice president, when he wanted to cut out $1 billion of business personal property. In fact, it wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. The point is, it's not me, it's the ability to have the data there. And I can tell you flat out, your county has been awesome for 10 years. You have not spent money. You haven't wasted money. Wabash, they knew, their people knew that they didn't have to come to the council to use their stabilization fund. Here, for the longest time, everyone thought they had to come to you. You're the council. You're the one that controls everything. That we have to have your approval. Wabash, they found out a year after they got the levy freeze. One of the townships said, we need a new fire truck. And basically, they give a good enough sob story to the state. The state says, well, yeah, you got the stabilization fund, go and get it. They got it. Yeah, everyone kept finding out things they could get. So I mean, look, how many millions did you have? You already know that everyone started to pull on when they realized they could, as long as they gave good enough reasons to the state, that they were allowed to have different things. Otherwise, you would never have thought your rates if you didn't. It was kept building.
Right.
All of a sudden, it got built, and everyone decided, like you just said, we've been tight for long enough. It's there. Let's start using it. But you didn't wipe it away. You still have it. So I'm here to tell you, there's no question, this county has done an awesome job of watching this money. Not county government. It's a cumulative. All the department, all the units of government have worked together. The only other place better than this is Marshall County, Plymouth. They don't have a lot. All right, they got one for the jail. Some junk of amount.
Really?
Plymouth.
What do they have? I wonder why.
You go down their main drag. They got lights, fancy, beautiful, on a pedestal. You saw movies. That's the only other town I know that does a great job. They're sliding though. All their people, their council, and newbies, young people that. Quality of life. I think I heard someone say that earlier. They want all these things, fast internet and all these things that they feel that those are requirements of life today. Most of the stuff that I got a cell phone. I used to have a pager. I mean, point is, you've done really good. So it's a matter of you can do a rate. You can max it out, which isn't much. Like you said, $250,000 the first year.
Which housing credits is worth that?
Yeah. The point is, the more you do this, tax rates, that means others are going to want to do the same thing. They'll find, oh, well, they're doing a rate. Next you know, your caps are doubling, tripling every year. Point is, you've done so well in 10, 12, 14 years. This looked like an easy way until the law got in my way. Because I look at short, sweet, 5 years done, get rid of it. What is it? Find somewhere in the nation, let alone the state here of Indiana, that someone implemented a tax and then rescinded it. Yeah, I know. Nobody did. Wabash, they didn't rescind it. They just moved it from credits and bills over to somewhere else. Huntington County has no credits to bills as of 3 years ago. They only had 0.25% credits to their bills. You had 0.3, they had 0.25. Only because they wanted the 0.25 at that time for public safety. But 3 years ago, they took those requirements off. You don't have to have a lit to have public safety. Everything's independent. And by the way, there's no maximum anymore. Well, there is a maximum of 2.5 overall. But if you want all to seat it, fine, 2.5. You want it all to shares, 2.5. You can pick any bucket you want. The sum of all those, I think, is 2.5. And right now, don't trust my numbers when it comes to that number. So I just know you're not anywhere near that. You don't need to be that. Try not to increase tax rate because you can't do it effectively. It's going to take 20 to 30 years. So my suggestion at this point is you got to think in your mind, how long do you want to take to get this $6.5–7 million?
10 years or less in my mind.
Yeah, I'd love it to get 10 years.
10 years or less.
See, if you said 15, that's fine, but you just said 10. That means if you just wipe away the credits now, because you're going to start hitting caps. And as your rates keep going up, that 1.1 million is going to be eaten away on the other end. And that, oh, wait a minute, we had tax money. Oh, wait a minute, no, we lost another 50,000. Now we lost next year 100,000, another $250,000. Oh, wait a minute, now the 1.1 million, we're going to have to take some of that to do our shoring up of our other things.
Yeah.
I mean, you already told me your PSAP, you're running out.
Darren, just curious,
Yeah.
the curveball into this, if you take it 10 years, is, again, if your AVs start going down, if we have an economy that starts to turn and your valuations go down, where does that start to play with you? We're hitting your caps. That's going to adjust your caps, right?
Yes,
More caps
because
in.
your assessments go down, your rates go
I
up.
mean, when it hits
more
that,
caps because
I'm just
your
going
rate
back to like
controls
08,
everything.
09 and going into 10, what happened,
The
how
beauty
fast
part
that
is, even if we
dove.
see a downturn right now, if everything started collapsing, we're going to keep going up for 3 years
Because of the trend, or we're
because we're behind. The state is 2 to 3 years behind in everything. We haven't seen an
it wouldn't
increase.
adjust that fast.
Huh?
It doesn't adjust that fast or trending and whatnot.
Isn't that the craziest part?
Yeah.
All this trending, all the paperwork being assessors are being supposed to be certified, and all of this, and yet they're 2 to 3 years. They say 2 years. Now I've seen enough in the data I deal with so much. It's 3 years before. Only now are we seeing assessments going up. Except for farmers, they found that there's an error in that. What, they took them down in 5 years? So the bottom line is, even if things start going to pot again, you got 3 years of growth before, oops, it starts going down. So before it starts going down, at that point, you probably want to cut it.
Yeah.
Honestly, from the more I'm seeing and hearing from you, that 10 years or less.
It just seems practical if it's
The
possible.
practicality is do what Huntington did, do what Washington County, Salem. They both, Salem had 0.3, like you did. And they took 3 years to cut it out. They cut it in half, and half had gone. So 15 down to, I think, 8 or 7, and then they got rid of credits. Huntington took 2 years. Their 0.25%, they took off 0.1 and had a 15, and then last year before, I don't know now, they just, fine, they took away. Now, there, they moved the 0.5, 0.2, 0.12 of the 0.15, all to PSAP. So their whole 911 is paid for. When they originally were told it was only good for the equipment, and they found now every aspect, as in salaries and FICA, every aspect of 911 can be part of that PSAP. So like now, you have a public safety right now of 0.15, I think it was. At that point, you're sharing that with other units of government. Now, you can say right off the top, we want 0.5 or 0.6 or 0.6, some off the top to pay for 911. And then you split up the difference.
I was going to say EMS
Would
will
EMS
need
be
at some
in
point.
that?
Sooner or later, that's going to happen.
EMS will have.
Right now, our EMS is
No,
subsidized.
EMS is public safety. PSAP is public safety access point. Well, it's 911 in layman's terms.
Just 911 only.
Close enough. Again,
Okay,
get with the
okay.
DLGF. They have a very short list. And PSAP goes to
What's
this.
acceptable.
And
Well, we
it's
need
right
to
on
shore
the
that
top.
up somehow.
We are gonna have to
Sooner or later
And that's,
we will.
and if we're gonna make moves, why not do
Do
them?
it.
If we can all do
Exactly.
it at once, do it
Yeah.
and get it done.
Yeah. Do you have a centralized? Does Boston have one? Or is it countywide?
Countywide.
It's
It's county EMS.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
911. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's public service answering points. Is the
Public
piece.
service,
Yeah, I mean,
answering
it's
Answering
phone.
points. Okay.
That's why I brought him along. Also, if I need him to drive home. Laughter. Best medicine. So,
Okay.
that's about it in a nutshell. Like I said, I really thought I had a solution here, but
Well, we're not in terrible
over
shape.
with, so.
Just get behind.
Honestly, you've done a great job, and now it's time to tell the public you have pony up, and we need the credits to fix our PSAP for 911. We need to fix it for this and that. Infrastructure. Your highway department is infrastructure. I know it's not its building, but it's to maintain the roads.
Well, if you've been to the old one, you'd say it's something.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Is that what you are?
That's where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
I didn't hear him ground. I just hear him kind of grin a little bit, so I figured I must have said something right.
Well, okay, Darren, that gives us food for thought here today. I mean, that was what we
Thank you
needed to
so
get
much.
to at this stage of the game. So, does anyone else have any other questions for Darren at this point? I know
Thank you for the info.
We're not where we need to be for final numbers and all, but It's in
Well, it sounded
process.
important, and as much as my wife didn't like me coming.
What?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully tomorrow goes well for you. So,
It's Tuesday next week.
or Tuesday next week. Okay.
I'll leave this way. It took 3 months when I went for my lower back. I had 2 60% compressed discs. It's 26 years ago, a car accident. Seatbelt ripped up my rear end, and it's taken 26 years to get 60% compressed. And I got to an orthopedic surgeon when I was supposed to have a neurosurgeon, and he ordered up therapy, exercise. My wife was in for a physical. She told our family doctor that I barely go to that I was having neck problems, and they got me in the next day. That afternoon, they had me down X-ray. The next Friday after that, 4 days later, they had me on an MRI and scheduled me for a neurosurgeon. The only word I understood was severe.
Ah, yeah.
All the other words I said, okay. So, anyways, that was 3 weeks ago, and now they got me on this stuff that's supposed to stop the signals that get into my brain. And that was...
And you're doing the numbers for us.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, only on thing.
But I was taking one little 100 milligram every night. Now it's every morning and night. But it's only 100 milligrams. But they told me if that wasn't enough, they can go up to 800 milligrams 3 times a day.
Wow.
I feel I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say, get them going.
That's only if I leave now.
Well, Darren, we appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Darren.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, now, there was another item on here, the BOT ordinance, where we're going to table that at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not up for prime time. And then I understand that the property assessment thing is on hold at the moment, too. So we're down to miscellaneous business. And so, what do you have? Anything like that?
Is this your laptop?
It is my laptop.
I'm going to leave this interactive one so you can play with the numbers and adjust things.
Okay,
So
okay. I
I'll
have
leave it.
nothing.
I'm done.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have anything else?
Thank
It was a
you.
little more of a marathon meeting, but we did cover a lot of stuff here, so, and it was all stuff that needed to be done. Is there anything from the audience?
Bless you.
Those that stayed to finish?
Yes, get rid of the homestead credits,
Here, here.
because when I first bought a house in Wells County, okay, my property taxes were double what they are today.
Yeah.
So you've been too generous.
It is telling.
I have been preaching that to every county.
No, it's
for
true.
years.
It's foolish math.
Yes.
Well, it is when you can't afford to do stuff for the county.
Well, exactly. I mean,
And you
that's-
have to understand the homestead credits came about, what, probably started in the 80s
Yes.
or the late 70s, when property taxes, of course, were funding the bulk of schools.
Yes.
And over the years, the legislature became too generous in providing homestead credits.
And the other one that was only supposed to last 3 years as they phased in the credits, the circuit breaker cap, was a supplemental deduction of another 35%. But it slipped through the cracks and became permanent. So you have the 60% up to $45,000. But then after that, no matter what the house is, even a $10 million home, it's a supplemental at 60 to 35% more. So a $100,000 home literally is only assessed at $31,000.
Well,
And you're adding another 25% off for credits.
And that goes along with farm ground that's assessed at $1,650 an acre, while everything else is based upon market value. Why is agricultural ground not based upon market value?
Talk to Purdue.
Good lobbyists.
No, talk to the Indiana Farm Bureau.
Yeah,
Good
that
lobbyists.
would do. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be true. Too true.
Good evening.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, Darren.
Thank you. See you guys.
Well, if there's no one else has anything else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Oz made a motion to adjourn. Second has been made. Those in favor, signify with raising your right hand. 6-0.
Can go
Thank
fast.
you. What-